Alright, you dumb motherfuckers, if you're going to be doing this shit, you should probably be documenting it. So in the line of do and don't do this, we will be making battery acid spaghetti today. Unfortunately, all they had at the store were these, and these are stale as hell, so it might not come out exactly as expected, but gotta make do. This is about 2 ounces, about the same as you'd find in the real deal. And we've got our energy drink. They were not specific, so we are going with mine of choice. I will be leaving this here for about 5-10 minutes and then coming back to it. I am already hearing an interesting reaction. There's a consistent high-pitched bubbling, as if something was dissolving. I suspect the sugar and the acid are reacting. A thin film is beginning to form along the top. Not much of one, but it's a start. And I suspect this will form a film, as has been described. There's a small radius around the glass and the rim where the bubbles have bounced out and landed. Continuous bubbles are building up on the candy and floating up. Then it seems, in general, the bubbles along the side are beginning to stagnate. They're moving less like the bubbles would normally form, and more like raindrops rolling up a window. The bubbles have not gelatinized yet, although I have a fork ready just in case. No noticeable change in size of the candy has formed, although due to a change in vibrancy, it's assumed the sugar coating is starting to release. The way it was described, in theory, there should be some form of froth building up, but unfortunately that doesn't seem to be the case. That might be down to the shape of the glass, though, rather than the choice of energy drink. condensation is consistently forming around the top here. It might be due to the bubbles, but we'll have to see once I've decided we've run this long enough. The described film is starting to concentrate towards the middle of the glass. It appears almost like powdered sugar, so maybe that's what it is. Volume of bubbles escaping to the surface has dramatically reduced, which would suggest the rest of the bubbles are actually properly suspended. I'm going to propose ahead of time that maybe people are saying don't do this due to the texture of the resulting liquid rather than the taste. That remains to be seen. The bubbles towards the very bottom near the candies have not moved at all. Some of them are escaping, but for the most part they seem to be sitting much stiller than the rest of the bottle. There might be a concentrate of viscosity towards the lower half. I have been told there might be a gelatin reaction involved. So the film is starting to increase in thickness. No large bubbles, but the smaller bubbles are starting to collect in mounds on top. There is one here and one here. I do not intend to touch them with the fork unless I decide otherwise. The pooling of bubbles seems to have ceased once again. I don't know what caused that reaction, but maybe there'll be a case where a specific layer breaks away from the material, and maybe something will happen, but it looks like not much of anything is happening at all. If this joke turns out to be a bust, I will attempt it more faithfully by trying to track down the real deal. Again, there is a possibility them being stale and of a different shape may have produced a worse off reaction than what should have happened. But running multiple experiments is generally a good idea. I'm tempted to tap on the glass to see what happens, but that would probably ruin the experiment in some way. The goal is to see how it reacts all on its own. Interestingly, it seems the liquid in question is beginning to clear up towards the base. I will be quite concerned if the energy drink in question turns clear, as that would suggest the material at the bottom is actually absorbing or changing what's suspended in the energy drink in some way. It's been approximately 15 minutes, and nothing significant seems to have happened in the past 7. I believe it is time to touch it with the fork. There is a slight residue. That is specifically the sugar floating up on the top. Not as filmy as I am led to believe. I think we'll run it another 5 minutes, and then I will give it a test. Further symptoms will be reported as they happen. Although I'm strongly suspecting that this test may have accidentally been done by people overseas not used to the awful chemicals we put in all of our food and drinks. The residue which escaped around the glass is greasy, actually. That's concerning. Although if gelatin was involved, that would explain quite a lot. It might also be wise to suggest combinations which would more likely produce the don't do this suggested by those who have tried this in the past. It may be that I am using the wrong energy drink. Although a significant portion of the images suggested some form of monster. And maybe I should try this with a form of monster that isn't zero sugar. Maybe that makes the difference. Come on, explode or something. Try to eat me. Alright, we have approached the 20-minute mark. The reaction has fallen to basically a standstill. I think it would be wise to try the material first before attempting to drink it. This would be easier if I hadn't broken the spaghetti, huh? Alright, it is very slippery, but as can be seen, the coating has been completely removed. And what remains is the inner candy. Let's give that a taste. Unfortunately, still stale. But what has happened is a coat of slime, similar to what someone would find on like Vienna sausage in a can, has formed around the gummies. That's likely the gelatin reaction described. None of it floated to the top, unfortunately. But my stomach can handle that at least, so I think it's time we gave the actual thing a taste. Ugh. Curse my busted knees. It tastes like a tropical punch. There's a greasy factor to it, which is to be expected. It hits like a rock when it approaches your stomach. It's basically entirely flat at this point. I think the CO2 may have reacted in some way. Yes, it's almost brothy, like a beef broth. There's almost a soup texture to it, which you wouldn't be expecting out of something that tastes like tropical fruit punch. The film is sticking to my teeth, actually. That's very thick. Maybe that is what's upsetting people. The texture appears to be getting thicker as one approaches the bottom of the glass. It may be actually as thick as heavy water by the bottom, maybe. I've got a fairly iron stomach, so maybe someone more sensitive would have to take this test, but so far results are neutral. I wouldn't call this pleasant. The texture and the taste don't match. But it's not actively poisonous. It's just unkind. I don't exactly like airheads. And I don't exactly like Monster. They seem to neutralize out, but not in the good kind of way, in the combining two gross colors to make a neutral, unhappy color, but with flavor. Yes, it's very thick close to that moment. It almost tastes like a it's almost like if you manage to suspend a mixture of Pedialyte and heavy water together. Not that I've tried that, but I suspect that is what you would get if you tried this. My stomach feels unsure. I do not feel nauseous, but it does feel like I shouldn't have drank this. As you can see, it's actually like very thick there. The orange colors actually faded a bit. I wonder if I should leave this for like an hour within the next can. Ooh, if I do it. Alright, so the thickest part was somewhere around the middle here. It's actually quite thin here and like somewhat thick at the top. I wouldn't exactly say this is a don't do it, but rather there's very little reason to do this at all. Like yeah, I guess I could do this. I could also go outside and lay on the sidewalk. Won't do much. I don't think it'll kill you. I'm waiting for the big punchline where I suddenly magically throw up. I suspect this would upset you if you tried to chug this on an empty stomach. It could also have something to do with a combination of taurine and sugar, causing a sugar rush. Unfortunately, I am quite immune to all energy drinks and most forms of sugar, so... in other words, I'm very severely depressed. Ironically, trying to eat these candies makes me want to drink something. They're very dry and acidic despite being suspended in liquid and being incredibly gelatinous. I'd say in the same way lemonade makes you more thirsty even though you're trying to break that on purpose. You know that feeling when you've eaten too much candy? Not like a nausea, but more like a imbalance of diet kind of feeling. It feels like I ate like one chocolate bar too many. And I actually get that in general with gummy candy, so that may be unrelated to the experiment. Like, I can't actually properly finish a bag of gummy bears without feeling off. No new or unusual flavors of off, although interestingly my nose is beginning to run. I'm gonna get a glass of water actually, because this is like... Yeah, I got a glass of water. That helps. It's not refreshing. If anything, it's pulling the, maybe due to the acid displacing what was in the gummy before. It's actually absorbing a lot of water out of my mouth. And the way pasta is different depending on its shape, maybe having more noodle-like strips makes people trip a gag reflex in some way. I may have to retry this experiment and actually use the strips instead of the chunks. Really tells you nobody likes these things. They were stale as hell. In fact, what's the expiration date on these? Resealable bag. Well, after thoroughly searching this package, I have come to the conclusion that there is no expiration date to these. Whether that is a good thing or a bad thing is up to you. I don't plan to eat the rest of these. It should also be noted I did eat a proper meal before doing this experiment. If there was a negative stomach effect that may have made the difference, perhaps too many people are trying to cram sugar and taurine into an empty stomach and it's causing an upset. Along with the texture, maybe that is what's causing people's strong reactions to this experiment. I'm gonna have to just floss when I'm done with this. Alright. That is the experiment in full. I may do another one in the future. Why is my nose is running? That's fascinating. I may redo this legitimately in the future, but it seems so far that this experiment is fairly harmless. Nice shoelaces, by the way.